trainers from Breathe Safety. Today we're going to go through self-contained breathing apparatus. As we've chosen self-contained breathing apparatus, as it is the ideal one for our job, it could be down to duration, airline not being suitable, or just the nature of where I'm going to be going. We've got to make sure we do the relevant checks. We have a number of checks we do on our breathing apparatus before we use them. There is a monthly check which needs to be recorded in accordance with cost regulations. We will always do a pre-use check, which is similar checks before we even use it. First of all, I have a Vision 3 mask, my personal favourite, because up to its name, you can see a lot more with it. I also like the Scott because the lung demand valve fits nicely on the side, gives you a lot more space to work. But with the vision of this visor, it means that when I do rescue work, things like that, I've got much better visibility. Check over my mask, check my impact visor, make sure there's not any scratches which could affect the integrity of the mask itself, but also not hinder any vision. Looking down, my exhalation valve, make sure there's no obvious obstructions in the beginning. Turning around and check my harness, I want to make sure my strap's going to fit and keep secure sealed to my face. Looking into the mask, I'm going to check all around the sill. There's nothing worse than putting on your air to discover you've got a little bit of cleaning cloth or some wild insect roaming around. The mask should be kept in a mask bag at all times to prevent it from getting scratched. Looking inside the mask, I've got an orinasal. That orinasal there has got two one-way valves, or we call them mushroom valves, which allows the air to pass from the mask into where I'm breathing, thereby giving me a clear as possible visor, but also to prevent the build-up of carbon dioxide. They close when I exhale, forcing all the expelled air forward through the exhalation valve. Check in to make sure my orinasal is in place, it's intact, and both the mushroom valves are also located. That's my mask. Move over to my cylinder. Cylinder I'm going to use, I've decided it's a 200 bar, it's a 9 litre, because that's going to be long enough for the job I'm going to do. On the valve, it's got a bit of a masking tape. That's purely there for when we store it. It prevents build-up of dust. Doesn't mean necessarily it's full. The first I'm going to know is when I apply this to the set. My cylinder comes complete with a cover to offer a little extra protection, particularly in confined space working, with a reflective strip just to give your team members something to look at. Taking out my cylinder, this is a carbon fibre salt. Aluminium coated with carbon fibre and a resin coating, much lighter than the steel equivalent. First of all, check the overall condition of my cylinder. I'll make sure there's no excessive wear, bangs, scrapes, etc., which could have an effect while I'm using it in a live job. Check my valve. On here I've got a positive action valve. I can only turn this on, turn it off, by engaging the positive action clip. Most modern ones will have some kind of positive action to prevent you from turning it off while you're in a confined space. Have a quick look through and check the threads within my valve. I want to make sure it's going to connect to my set nicely. Black and white shoulder, that denotes breathable compressed air. Also another important thing, I cannot connect any other type of gas to the self-contained BA set. Next thing I'll look at is the information. On a carbon fibre, the information is printed generally around the cylinder. On steel cylinders, they're often engraved within the metalwork. Here, I'm going to look for some key bits of information. Number one, 9 litres. That's going to help me work out my capacity and duration when I'm breathing later. Also, I'm going to check its pressure. It's a nice large bar, mark, 207 bar, so it's a 200 bar cylinder. 207, because often they're charged to 207 to ensure you get your money's worth when the weather conditions change, atmospheric conditions, all has expansion and contraction at different rates. The other thing I want to make sure is this cylinder is in date. On here, there will be a manufacturer's date. 5 years from manufacture, any cylinder, both steel and carbon fibre, will need to be hydrostatically tested. It involves them being emptied, filled with water, put under pressure and tested. And they're all tested well in excess of the pressure that we charge them to generally. On here, as I have a look, this cylinder was manufactured in 2006. Carbon fibre has a 15-year lifespan, which means in 2021, rest in peace. Hydrostatic test sticker shows me that it's in date until its end of life. So it's been tested, and that's good for me to work at. Obviously I'm not going to know if this is full until I plug it onto my set. However, the more you use them, you do get a feel for the general weight when you've got your air in there. Moving on to my backplate. This is a Scott Sabre Contour backplate. Your mask and your backplate has to be the same. Cylinders will fit any backplate. All part of a commercial go. So I need to look over my kit. The first thing I want to check is its in service date. These items need to be serviced every 12 months. Make sure it's in date. Then I'm going to check the overall condition of my set. Just like you would do a rucksack, I check all my straps and harnesses, make sure there's no contamination, no wear, no cuts. I don't want to be losing my cylinder while I'm crawling through a tunnel system. Then what I'm going to do, I start at the bottom and work my way up. Got some covers. That's my connector for my cylinder. What I'm looking for here is to make sure again the threads are such that they are going to be fully working. I don't want them cross-threading, I don't want them jamming on me. I check my O-ring seal. There's an O-ring seal located there. If I lose that, then I will be losing air, which could be an issue if you're in a hazardous environment. Also have a quick look just to make sure I've got a brass screw in there, which is my sintered filter. That shouldn't come out, but it's always worth just double checking. That line leads to my first stage reducer. Obviously my 200 or 300 bar cylinder, both of which will fit this set, needs to reduce the pressure down before it gets to me. Inside there you've got a giant spring, applies the pressure against it, which will reduce it down, ready for my medium pressure airline through my pneumatics. Check my pneumatics out as I work my way along. All the pneumatic lines assembly are within the backplate. So I check it as best I can. Check the connections. I have a thicker line which runs through the top of my set. That is my medium pressure line. That's going to be running down to a pressure between 5 and 11 bar. That leads all the way through to my lung demand valve. My lung demand valve, or second stage reducer, is where it will put the air down to 1.3 bar before it enters my mask, so I can breathe without being punched in the back of the throat. Take the dust cover off. Key things to check on here, I have a flow valve. My flow valve, the flat edge always goes to the open end. A release switch, and I will release it from my mask, and a reset button. The other thing I need to check, it's got an O-ring seal located around my lung demand valve where it attaches to my mask. Won't necessarily mean I'll lose air, but there's potential when it moves. So I check all that's in order. Reset button, always play with the reset button. You don't want to release any air when you turn on your cylinder. The other line is the thinner line. The thinner line runs back up through the back plate. This is my pressure line. That moves to my gauge, my whistle assembly. This is the one thing in life which tells you how long you've got left to live, so it's key that you know how to read it. With my gauge, it goes up to 360 bar in interpolations. The 300 and 200 being identified with triangles to make them more obvious in a dimly lit or dark situation. Having looked on there, my needle's sat where it should be. It's got a glow-in-the-dark screen on the back. Key thing is remember when you're looking at it square on, because it can affect what you're looking towards gauge reading wise. Whistle assembly is there designed to let you know when you are running out of air. It should give you plenty of time to leave your area that you're in, and that's all part of working out for your job. That's my gauge and my whistle assembly, all into my high pressure line. What I'm going to do now is my pre-use check. I'll do this before I put a new cylinder, and I'll do it at least once a month, which needs to be recorded under cost regulations. Put the cylinder back into this bag. Not essential, but it does mean that you offer a little bit more protection to your cylinder. Making sure my reflective strip is fully to the rear. That means that my colleagues can see me while I'm crawling through the tunnel system. Place my cylinder onto my set. At this point, it's normally easier to connect my cylinder before I attach the harness. What I have to bear in mind when I'm attaching cylinders to these sets is the 300 bar cylinder has got a longer neck on the valve and a small hole in it. It's designed so that when you're charging up your cylinders, you don't overcharge your cylinder. Although this is tested above 300 bar, I don't want to regularly be charging this to 300 bar. This has a knock-on effect. When I screw in the connection, sometimes I get a little bit of thread left over. Some people get overzealous and try and crunch it on. That causes further issues. It is a soft metal and you might not get it undone. As long as it's finger tight, once it goes under pressure, it's not going anywhere. There's my set, ready to rock and roll. What I'm going to do now is my pre-use check. Every time I break the circuit, change the cylinder, or before use, I'll do the same check. But this is the same check as we will do monthly, which is recorded in your logbook. Taking my lung demand valve, ensure I've reset it. I do not want the air being released before I need it to be. And I check my flow valve on a Scott. It's got the flat edge towards the open bit. Here, I'm going to turn on my cylinder. What I'm doing now is I'm allowing all the air to run through the pneumatics and system and fully expand all the pipe work. What I want to do is 2 checks. The high pressure leak test, and I'm going to do a low pressure whistle warning. With the high pressure leak test, I'm going to turn off the valve, leave the system charged with the air at the pressure that it should be, and we leave it for a period of 1 minute. The tolerance within this set, manufacturer's recommendation, is no more than 10 bar a minute to be lost. So what I do on this occasion, I check the gauge, I look at where my needle is in relation to the interpolations. This is one of the few occasions that I actually look at the exact location rather than rounding down. I know where it is, I'm going to turn off my cylinder. Then I start my clock. Looking at the time, I'm going to give it a minute, and I want to make sure that that needle doesn't move on that gauge. As I said, the tolerance manufacturer's recommendation is no more than 10 bar a minute. Ideally, it doesn't want to move at all. Minute's up. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to test the whistle. The whistle is your emergency. That's telling you you've got a certain amount of time left. What we always aim to do is work to our whistle, not on it. So I ideally want to be leaving my environment as the whistle goes, not while it's going. So what I do now is I take my lung demand valve and using my flow valve, I want to release the air steadily and not too fast, and I don't want to jerk it, and then I want to watch my gauge as it goes down. Manufacturer's recommendation on this particular set with the cylinder I'm using, I am looking for my whistle to go off at 55 bar plus or minus 5 bar. Realistically, that should give me at least 10 minutes escape time. Although more air consumption is being used with the whistle being blown, and obviously other considerations like work rate, temperature, anxiety, things like that. Watching my gauge go down. The gauge is going down steadily. And that went up just above 55 bar. Obviously hard for you to see with the gauge down here. So that set is ready to use. Always pass its monthly check, in which case I would log it in the official log book. Now I'm going to wear it to go into the job. It's been pre-use checked, so I'm happy it works. There's other checks that we do before we ever go in anywhere. First of all, put the cylinder on. Just like a rucksack, I want it as symmetrical as possible. My personal choice is to wear the cylinder higher, makes it easier, especially when I'm going through a tunnel system. Apply the waist belt and adjust. Tucking away any loose ends so not to cause any obstructions. With my mask, I have a neck strap. Important, wear your neck strap. Always the first on, it's going to protect your mask. stops it from going on the ground and being scratched. Alternatively, inclement weather, I can put the mask nicely so it's not going to fill with rainwater, dust, debris. Connecting on my lung demand valve, and I'm ready to go through my donning checks. Now we do a donning check or a facelift breathe down in order to make sure I've got a perfect seal from an environment, particularly for toxic gases or any other hazards. Last thing I want to do is breathe it in. Benefit having is a positive pressure mask, which means it will be blowing air against the seal and hopefully singing against my face. First thing I'm going to do then, when I'm getting ready, will be to turn my air on. On this occasion I don't fully open my valve. It's the only time I don't fully open it because I'm going to be turning it off shortly. I'm going to run through a series of tests. I will go under air, I will activate my first breath mechanism. I'll be breathing from my cylinder. Now it's important at this stage that anyone in your team all does this at the same time, otherwise somebody stands around breathing the air in and you won't have the same duration that you should have for your job. So I'm going to go under air. The first check I'm going to be doing is a positive pressure check to make sure I've got a seal. By breaking the seal, I hear the air rush out from my mask. First check. The second check I will do is my lung demand valve. The lung demand valve is a rubber diaphragm, which means it could be vulnerable. So I'm going to check that to make sure it operates. I do this by holding my breath, resetting it, activating it, and I'll always do that check twice just to be sure. Then I will check the purge. Following the purge check, which is blasting air into my mask, I'm then going to look at the actual seal of my mask. To do this, I will hold my breath and I will turn off my cylinder, which does sound daunting, but it's not for very long. Holding my breath, I'm then going to check for leaks by moving my head around, as I would do normally in any operation. While I'm doing that, I will be checking my gauge, keeping eye contact on the needle to make sure it doesn't move and I have a perfect seal. Once I'm happy with that, I will start to breathe down what air is left in the system, not the cylinder because it's switched off. And the goal is twofold. One, to make sure my whistle is still going off when it should be going off, but also when I breathe down and run out of air in the system, my mask should suck on my face, which would suggest that I've got a good seal with the mask. So I'm going to run through this test now. This is a set of tests you never want to scrimp on. This is important. If at any time I take my mask off, move it, knock it, I have to start from scratch. I need to make sure this mask is fitting perfectly before going to that particular environment.
Get myself comfortable. First of all, my positive pressure check. Break the seal with my finger. Second, I will check the lung demand valve. Both working. Quick close of my mask just to reassure me that I can get an airflow should I get hot or should I steam up. That is working. Now for the more tricky bit, and I won't be talking through this bit. I will turn off my cylinder and hold my breath. And then I will be checking the seal of my mask, by checking my gauge. I will breathe down, checking my whistle and the seal of the mask. As soon as I'm happy those tests are complete, I turn my air on and immediately I will get air supply, turning my cylinder fully on. Good seal on my mask, I'm ready to go to the job now. So I move to the entry control.